Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of The Awesome with Cody. I'm your host, Cody, and today we're continuing March 2021's theme of massive monster movies. So last week I talked about Pacific Rim and Pacific Rim Uprising, the Pacific Rim Universe, really, because I talked about the cartoon a little bit too. This week we're going to dive into Cloverfield, the franchise. Mainly, I'm going to talk a lot about the first two movies, mainly because the third one not so great. But we'll get there in a little bit. Basically, if you don't know what Cloverfield is, the first movie, produced by J.J. Abrams, directed by Matt Reeves, screenplay and story written by Drew Goddard. Those three gentlemen, so J.J. Abrams, Matt Reeves, and Drew Goddard. Oh, and Brian Buck is in there too, but he's just a producer. I'll get to him in a minute because he's got a lot of pretty big producing credits under his name, but he works very closely with JJ on a handful of things, and I'll get there in a moment when I talk about him. But so the main three dudes that run or have created this: Matt Reeves, the director, Drew Goddard, the writer, and J.J. Abrams for the first movie, Cloverfield. And I'll get to the second one because the second one's really good too, and I'll talk more about that. So we'll start with J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams, he is the only one involved in all of these, all three of the movies. Well, I guess technically maybe the fourth one, depending on how that actually goes. We don't know much about it, but I can't really talk anything about that. I mean, the future of it is they have plans, and there's a writer attached, and whatever, but I don't know any more about that. Anyhow, so the first movie, written by Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard, for the folks who haven't or don't know who that happens to be, Drew Goddard is a great masterpiece of a gentleman himself. He's done a lot of things that people should know. He is still creating stuff. He's done quite a few things that I've talked about on here before, and he's worked with JJ on a few things in the past as well. But he's also worked very closely with Joss Whedon throughout the years. Television wise, he started as a writer on Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the first from 2002 to 2003. In the 7th season, he wrote a handful of episodes. Worked on Angel for a couple of years. Worked on Alias for a couple of years, and then got into the J.J. Abrams world of with that, which led to him working on Lost. Then later on in his career, he worked on Daredevil, the television program. He executive produced as well as wrote the first 2 episodes of the first season. Worked on executive produced and directed a few episodes of the show The Good Place, and then of course he wrote and one of the episodes and executive produced The Defenders, which is for Netflix, the Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones meetup movie or series. So he has a pretty good long career over in there in the television realm. Movie wise, a lot of writing. He in 2 very excellent directorial debuts, and I talked about him a little bit when I talked about Cabin in the Woods, because he wrote and directed that. That was his directorial debut in 2012. Obviously, he wrote Cloverfield. He wrote one of the treatments for World War Z. He wrote the adaptation of the movie The Martian with Matt Damon, directed by Ridley Scott, of course, based on the book by the same name, released in 2011 by Andy Weir. Then he executive produced 10 Cloverfield Lane and Cloverfield Paradox, the third movie. Then he was he was a script consultant on the movie Deadpool 2. And then he wrote, produced, and directed his best work, if you ask me, that he's done, which is Bad Times at the El Royale, which came out 3 years ago now. And then he has a couple other things that are in the workings right now. 3 different things he's been writing on, and they're all adaptations of different books. The first one is Nevermore, not the Neil Gaiman one, but the book by Jessica Townsend. Wraiths of the Broken Land, which is a book from S. Craig Zahler, I believe is how you pronounce it. And the last one is another adaptation of Andy Weir book, Project Hail Mary, which is actually Andy Weir's new book that comes out later this year, 2021. Which I haven't read yet, but I tried to enter a contest to win it. I did not. But whatever. I'll get it when it comes out. So yeah, that's Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard's amazing. I can't wait for him to do more things, especially on his own if he feels so inclined to do some other stuff like Bad Times at El Royale, because it was fantastic and introduced me and I think the world to Cynthia Varro, who is an amazing talent who plays Aretha Franklin in the what channel is that? Not TLC. What channel do they do that docu-series on, or that biopic thing on? I can't remember what it is. Bravo, I think. Anyways, but she's amazing in that. So is Jeff Bridges, and everyone in that movie is fantastic because that movie is amazing. So that's Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard is fantastic, and I hope to get more stuff from him later in the future. Next up, Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves is the director of this here movie. His career is actually very similar to Drew Goddard's in the fact that he worked on a lot of things with other people early in his career, got involved with J.J. Abrams on Felicity. He directed that, was showrunner, executive producer, and writer and co-creator of that with J.J. Abrams. Then he did some directing on other shows, Gideon's Crossing, Miracles, Conviction. Then he produced a bunch of other stuff, including The Passage, which was unfortunately a adaptation of a very good book series that I knew would never go anywhere. I watched the first episode. It intrigued me. It had Zach Morris in it. And it's about vampires, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And in this world, vampires are more monsters than they are humanoids in this. So it made me like it a lot. I was like, okay, I'll read the books. Read the books. Books are fantastic. Basically, about 1/3 of the way into the book, I realized they're never going to make this. This TV show is never going to make it. And I never actually watched another episode of the television program because there's no way it could live up to the books, and there's no way they could actually do what they did in the books on the meager budget I guarantee Fox was giving them. But he did produce that, so thank you, Matt Reeves. A show called Tales from the Loop that came out last year. I've yet to watch it, but I heard some amazing things about it, and I need to go check it out. It was on... Oh my God, where was it? Is it on Prime Video? Yeah, on Amazon. I need to check it out. It came out last year. There's 8 episodes. I think it did pretty well. They all the episodes dropped at the same time, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember if they announced if they're doing any more of it, but you should check it out. And I'll put the trailer on the the website. So if you want to check it out, you can, or just go over to the old YouTubes and check out Tales from the Loop. It's an interesting show. Again, I haven't watched it. I only saw the trailer because I saw Matt Reeves had something to do with it, and I'm all in on Matt Reeves stuff. I said this before on the main podcast. He's executive producing it, so it's not like he's like, I don't think he's a whole lot of hands hands deep into it. I think he's just getting his name as well as his pull of knowing amazing filmmakers to make this. And again, I don't know much about it other than it looks pretty fucking crazy, and you should check it out for sure because it's pretty rad. So yeah, Matt Reeves, for the folks who don't know, he is now doing the Batman movies with Robert Pattinson, which is pretty big career. I was just talking to Paige about this. It's pretty crazy, his career path, I should say. So, like I said, television-wise, back in 1997, he started directing episodes of TV shows. He did an episode of Homicide: Life on the Streets and Relativity. I want to say short-lived series. I don't remember if it went very far at all. But yeah, it's definitely. I don't think it lasted more than maybe a year. Homicide: Life on the Streets. I mean, a pretty long-running show, if I remember correctly. Ran for a bunch of years, maybe 4 or 5 years. Then he did Felicity, which he co-created and was showrunner with J.J. Abrams for 84 episodes of it from 1998 to 2002. Like I said, then he did a couple other shows, Gideon's Crossing, Miracles, Conviction, The Passage. He produced, like I said, Tales from the Loop and Away, which I don't remember which one Away was. Oh yeah, the one with Hilary Swank that got canceled on Netflix, the space one. And then now he's producing Gotham PD for HBO Max, which is based in the Batman world he's building with Robert Pattinson right now for The Batman. And speaking of those, his movies. So he did a segment in a movie called Future Shock. Where he directed and wrote that segment of it. I don't know if anywhere you can actually watch it. I've never seen it. I just read about it, but you can check it out. Then he wrote, co-wrote the script for Under Siege 2: Dark Territory. Then he directed and wrote, or co-wrote also, The Pallbearer, I guess you could call romantic comedy with David Schwimmer, Gwyneth Paltrow, and some other people. I can't remember who's in that one. I should have pulled it up, but I didn't. Then he had, he wrote or co-wrote and produced the movie The Yards, with Joaquin Phoenix, Mark Wahlberg, Charlize Theron, and someone else in it. Again, I should have pulled that up. Then he directed Cloverfield. Then he wrote and directed Let Me In, which is an adaptation or a American remake of a Japanese movie. Is it Japanese? Hold on, it's not Japanese. I know it's a remake of a Swedish film, Let the Right One In. That's what it was, Swedish film. I was thinking of a different one. But yeah, Swedish film. It's about vampires. It's pretty cool. It has Cody Smith McPhee, Chloe Grace Moretz, and a couple other people's in it. Richard Jenkins is in it. And it's pretty fucking spooky. I like that movie a lot. Did you do Matt Reeves? Then he did Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He directed that one. Then he co-wrote with Mark Baumbach, or Baumbach. I can't remember his name. I did War of the Planet of the Apes. All fantastic movies. Coming off of a very strong movie, which was the remake or reboot of Planet of the Apes, which obviously, did fairly well to get other sequels. I will say this, though. The sequels are tremendously better than the second and third one are tremendously better than the first one. The first one's really good. I was actually very impressed by it, and it's funny. Well, not funny. It's kind of one of those movies that you forget Andy Serkis kind of like is the man when it comes to making motion capture anything. I mean, he's done Lord of the Rings, King Kong with Peter Jackson, Star Wars stuff, obviously Planet of the Apes stuff. He did his own Jungle Book stuff on it. It just, phenomenal. I'm trying to remember the name. Rupert Wyatt is the name of the guy who did Rise of the Planet of the Apes. It was the first movie of the remake or reboot of those ones. Couldn't remember his name to save my life. But we're not talking about him today, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, Matt Reeves did those movies, and then now he's doing The Batman, which he co-wrote and produced to hopefully spectacular future. Warner Brothers / HBO and DC must be super happy with what they're getting from him, because a very strong first teaser trailer, but also they announced a tie-in spin-off television program called Gotham PD, based in the world he's building right now of the Batman, for future release on HBO Max, which is pretty cool. And I don't know, I don't think they've actually announced anything about that other than it is going to be a police procedural drama based in the world of Batman. Hopefully we will see more of, obviously, Commissioner Gordon, who is being played by Jeffrey Wright in the Batman. And we'll see what happens. Maybe Matt Reeves will even reach in and direct a couple of those episodes too, if not all of them. But whatever, it's up to him and the powers to be. But yeah, it's Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves is amazing. J.J. Abrams, like I said, we know J.J. Abrams. Reboot of Star Trek is his. The revigoring of Mission Impossible movies, which he directed and co-wrote, I should say, the first one with his long-working partners, Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci, who he then went on to work with on Star Trek Into Darkness, and that led to those two actually working on Transformers, as well as I think Alex is currently working on the Star Trek television programs that are on CBS All Access, like the Star Trek Discovery, as well as a couple other things that are on there. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, JJ, really his career in film isn't nearly as big as his role in television programs, and even then, it's not even that long. It's very storied. It's very massive. But he hasn't had a really long. I mean, his career started in 1990. 1990, where he produced wrote a movie called Taking Care of Business. I don't know if you've ever heard of this movie or not. Taking Care of Business is a movie from 1990. It is a comedy film. You should check it out. It's actually a pretty good movie. Who's in that one? That one has James Belushi, right? Yeah, James Belushi. Charles Grodin is in that one. Pretty fun movie. Then he co-produced and wrote Regarding Henry, Forever Young, Gone Fishing, Armageddon, which he actually co-wrote those last two. Joyride, he produced and co-wrote that one as well. It was a horror movie with Paul Walker and some other people in it. Then he directed and wrote, co-wrote, like I said, Mission Impossible 3. Then he did Star Trek, Super 8, which also I could have included in this, which I didn't think about including until actually just today. I didn't think about including it until I was rewatching Cloverfield. I was like, oh, you know what? One of JJ's follow-ups to this one was Super 8, and because he produced obviously Cloverfield, but I was like, oh yeah, like a couple of years later he did Super 8, which is a super fucked up super fucked up ET movie with a bunch of kids and this alien who's eating people, and I want to say it could have been, was it rated R? It might have been rated R. It had to have been rated R, right? Back then maybe not, because there's no violence, human to human violence. There was alien to human violence and human to alien violence, but never man to man violence or human to human violence, which is usually what causes a rated R for these type of movies. But Super 8 was super fun. If you haven't seen that one, it's super awesome. I haven't rewatched it in a while, so you know what? I probably should, and I will, but I'm not going to do it for this month's stuff. I'll watch it this month maybe, but not for recording purposes, just for enjoyment purposes. And then, like I said, he did Star Trek Into Darkness. Then he did Force Awakens, the two Star Wars movies he did, Force Awakens, and then Rise of Skywalker, which he co-produced and co-wrote with a couple of different people, and then produced a bunch of different things television-wise. Started his career with Felicity. Then he did Alias. Then he helped create Lost. Then he co-created and wrote on a show called Fringe, which is a fantastic show. Ran for a bunch of years. Then he did produced Purse of Interest, Alcatraz, Revolution, which was a really cool show that unfortunately didn't go anywhere. Almost Human, which again, really good show that should have gone further, but it didn't. And then has something called Demi Modal something or other. It's HBO show or some sort. I don't know what it is. It's to be announced show that he has going on. Plus, he's produced a bunch of stuff with Amazon or Hulu in the Stephen King realm. He did what was the name of that? The Castle Rock stuff. He did the 11/26/62. Is that what it's called? The one about the show with James Franco where he was going back in time and trying to stop the 11/22/63. Boom, there it is. And then he did that one with James Franco as a miniseries. It unfortunately has not come back. Then he produced Westworld, which is still going on, which links him to a different Batman series because that's being done. Then he's produced Lovecraft Country on HBO, fantastic show. He's producing another Stephen King project called Lizzie's Story. It's Liseys Story. And then he's doing a show. Is it a show? I can't remember what it's called. Called Overlook. I think it's a show. Yeah, it's basically based on The Shining in Doctor Sleep. And I can't remember what it actually is, but I think it's all about happenings at the Overlook Hotel, other than the events of Shining and Doctor Sleep, which is going to be pretty cool. And that's about all I can really say about JJ. Let's see. And Brian, I was going to say Brian Buck, who co-wrote or co-produced Cloverfield with JJ, has done quite a few things. He worked, like I said, a lot of different things with JJ. Cloverfield, Star Trek, Super 8, Mission Impossible. He produced Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, Star Trek Into Darkness, Rogue Nation, 10 Cloverfield Lane, Star Wars, Force Awakens, Star Trek Beyond, which was the third of the rebooted movies, and the ones he didn't. JJ didn't direct that one. And then for television-wise, co-producer of Alias, executive producer of Lost, Fringe, Person of Interest, Alcatraz, Revolution, Almost Human, 11/22/63, Roadies, Westworld, all that stuff. JJ, big partner with JJ, like I said. All right, so who's in this movie? Real quick, because this is going longer than I expected, but again, I'm talking about 3 different movies, so we'll go quickly. So this one, the main cast of Cloverfield, the first movie, Lizzie Kaplan, who obviously JJ later worked with on Castle Rock, as she played Annie in the second season of that show. Lizzie Kaplan's been in a lot of different things. Many things that she's done, she was in fantastically. But I've loved her in almost everything she's done. I don't always love the movie she's in, but she's really good in pretty much everything she's in. And will be in a lot more things going in the future. I think she was in the Marvel universe because she was in the short that was on the Avengers, I believe is what it was on. I think so. In the first few Marvel movies, they did these Marvel shorts. She was in one of them, which I can't think of the name right now. But it doesn't really matter. That's not what we're here talking about. So that's Lizzie Kaplan. She's pretty awesome. You have Jessica Lucas. Jessica Lucas has done a lot of different things. Many things which you may not know. But one of the big ones, she was in the remake or reboot, or I don't even know, sequel, I guess, Evil Dead, which I just recently rewatched as well. Then television-wise, she's been in longest, I would probably say biggest role she was in. Right now she's on a show called The Resident. She's in season 4 of that one. Gotham, she was in that one for like 3 seasons. She was on Life as We Know It, The L Word. Well, she was on an episode of The L Word. She was on the reboot of 90210. She was on 4 episodes of CSI. She was on Friends with Benefits. She was on an episode of Psych, which gets her in my book as being awesome. So yeah, Jessica Lucas has been in a lot of different things. TJ Miller, arguably the person who's in this movie the most, actually, without actually being in the movie. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But he's done a lot of different things, a lot of voice work recently, but he was in Deadpool 2. He was voice in Yogi Bear. Transformers Age of Extinction, he was on the screen. He unfortunately died, got turned into metal. One of my favorite comedies, She's Out of My League. Big Hero 6, he did a voice on that one, fantastic voice. Who his father was actually voiced by Stan Lee, which is pretty cool. He was in the Emoji Movie, which actually has some funny parts, but is actually a really terrible movie. Ready Player One, he was awesome in that one. Small role, it wasn't like a huge, massive role now, but he was good. And I'm glad they actually used him in that one, because they didn't really have to have that character in there as being anybody, but they had him in there, which is pretty cool. I played IROC, I believe, in that one. Is what they well, sort of. He was a different version of it than what he was in the books, but that's another day. And then he was in the first 2 How to Train Your Dragon movies, and then he was later replaced by, I can't remember who it was. Jake Busey, was that who took over in the third one? Anyways, it doesn't matter. So that's T.J. Miller. He's a stand-up comedian as well. Has done a lot of different things. But those are the probably the biggest movies I would say he was in. He's been in a lot of different movies, don't get me wrong, but those are the biggest ones that you should know him from. Next up is Michael Stahl David. I don't know too much about this guy. I looked him up, and I was like, oh, I've heard a lot of these things, but I couldn't pull him out of any of them to save my life because I don't think I've ever really seen him in any of these. The only one I knew him from was I didn't even know it was him until I looked this up. He was in the show Narcos in the 3rd season, which I only watched like 2 episodes of. So I was like, oh, okay, that's why I don't recognize this, because I didn't watch that season. But he's been in a lot of different things, and I haven't watched most of them, so that's cool. And then lastly, from the first movie, Cloverfield, is Mike Vogel. Mike Vogel plays Rob's brother in this movie, Jason. He's been in a lot of different things. The biggest thing I can think of he was in, he's in The Help. He was in, also in She's Out of My League. He played Jack in that one. He was awesome in that one, too. He was in Under the Dome for like 2 or 3 seasons. Handful of episodes he did in that one. Then he was on a show called The Brave, which was on... I don't even remember what channel that was on. I didn't pull it up, but I know he's in that one for a while. Been in a bunch of different things. Movie-wise, obviously, Cloverfield, there. The Help, he was in the recent redo of Fantasy Island. Small role there. A bunch of different stuff that he's been in. So next up, I'll go over the movies briefly, mostly just the first 2. Next up is 10 Cloverfield Lane. Easily can go over everybody who's in and made this movie. So it was directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who is amazing, who is on the fast track. If he ever gets a fucking project to finish, is fantastic, and he's amazing. And should be doing all sorts of stuff, but we'll get to that in a minute. In the movie, the main 3 actors is Mary Elizabeth Winstead, John Goodman, and John Gallagher Jr. Then Bradley Cooper technically has a role in it because he does the voice of Michelle's boyfriend, who she's talking to on the phone when she has her accident, air quotes. So the cool thing about this one, completely different movie from the first movie, and if you didn't know, like if the name Cloverfield wasn't in the title, you would have never known it was part of it until the very end, because you don't really know what's going on in the movie until the very end of it. But basically, actually, I'll go over that one in a second. Dan Trachtenberg, for the folks who don't know who Dan Trachtenberg is, Dan Trachtenberg has done 10 Cloverfield Lane. He has directed an episode of Black Mirror, which is called Playtest. Fantastic episode. He did 1 episode of The Boys, season 1. The name of the game is pretty awesome. He did a short film called Portal, No Escape, which is fantastic. One called More Than You Can Chew, and then Warframe, which came out 2 years ago. But he's working on a bunch of other stuff, including a new Predator movie, which is pretty awesome. Hopefully that actually gets off the ground. He was attached to the Uncharted movie, but that fell through, and now has someone else doing it. He, like I said, he worked on the first episode of The Boys on Amazon Prime, which is a fantastic show as well. You should watch that one. And hopefully he has a much larger, fantastic career ahead of him, and hopefully get some stuff off the ground, because he was also attached to do Y the Last Man, if I'm not mistaken, at one point too. Like I said, he needs to get some stuff off the ground, but he cares too much, I think, about what he's doing. And I say this, I don't know the guy. I met him once, sort of, but he's pretty fantastic in what he makes, and I wish he would do have the opportunity to do more stuff, is all I'm saying. Dan Trachtenberg, everybody. So the first Cloverfield movie is a found footage movie. It's a monster movie. The second one's a monster movie, but a different type, and I'll get to that in a minute. So basically, premise is character by the name of Robert Hawkins, played by Michael Stahl David, is getting ready to move to Japan because he has a career opportunity over there because he's vice president of something other, which I don't think they actually ever tell you what it is. But anyways, he is then he has all of his friends and family there. Well, his brother is there. A bunch of his friends and things like that are there to wish him good luck in a surprise going away party. The movie starts off with him and this girl. I don't know why I say a girl. His love interest in the movie named Beth, who is played by Odette Yutzman, which I forgot to actually talk about on here. I did forget to talk about Odette. Anyways, Odette is on here as well, and she's been in a bunch of different things. You find out that the course of it, they had a nasty breakup because they've been friends forever, and they finally hooked up, and it fell kind of apart because he faltered at the finish line. Not that he couldn't finish in bed. I think that it was fine. But he couldn't tell her how he felt because he was moving and he felt it was awkward and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so at the party, the way they do the found footage is the camera is used to record testimonials for him as he's going away from all his friends, so he can always, watch him and see all these different things. So if he gets homesick, it's kind of like a taste of home. Like they do at weddings. Which is what the line from the movie. That's where T.J. Miller's character comes in, who is the kind of the narrator point of view for the movie, for the most part, for the entire movie, until he dies terribly, and probably painfully. Spoiler, I guess. Well, spoiler, everyone dies in the movie. Everyone who you know of their names and they speak in it die, except for we don't know one of them might have lived. We don't actually know, but it's undetermined at this point. But during this, a power outage happens, and it turns out that a giant monster is attacking New York. This giant monster that everyone refers to as Clover. It is the titular monster in essentially the first movie, the third movie, sort of, and in the manga apparently, which I've never read, but it's in there. He is he's not really shown until probably, clearly halfway through the movie. You see him and breathe. Anyways, he attacks. At one point chucks the head of the Statue of Liberty into Manhattan, which just happens to be near our heroes, our cast, I guess. And shit goes awry. The found footage, like I said, is the camera's being held by T.J. Miller as he goes through, and he's trying to chronicle everything that's happening. They also use the camera in a way that they interact with the camera because they use the flashlight, the light on the camera for a flashlight at one point. They use the night vision, which turns out to be a saving grace, but also one of the most terrifying things in the movie because of the spider creatures that spawn off of the giant monster, and is terrifying throughout the whole thing. So that's it. The military tries to fight it. Doesn't really work out for them everywhere. And then they drop a fucking giant bomb on Manhattan. And we don't know what happens from there, but we do know that it's not good. Actually, we do know it didn't really stop anything. So then we go on to 10 Cloverfield Lane. They did a really good job when they released this, basically the marketing, not letting anyone think it's basically a sequel or whatever. So they did an interesting thing. So the film was the first trailer was attached to 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. Fantastic movie, by the way. If you like war movies, it's really good. Just like they did with Cloverfield, there was a giant viral marketing campaign. There was all these different things that were basically trying to mislead you from knowing what it was. Even the title was kind of obscured at the time, and then they didn't really show you much of anything in it. And then once it was released, obviously it came out that what it was. But I think had a really good reception. Like, it was received very well. Nominated for a bunch of awards. A couple people won things for it. It's a fantastic movie. Like I said, it has a very short cast in it, but a very excellent cast in it. All three are amazing. Elizabeth Winstead, John Goodman, and John Gallagher Jr. Are all fantastic in it, and don't get the praise I don't think anyone really deserves. As well as Diane Trachtenberg for making a fucking amazing movie. But the way this ties into it is you find out that essentially, spoiler, if you don't want to know what this is about, skip ahead about 2 minutes or so, or just stop listening because I'm about to bash the third movie. Well, I'm not even going to talk that much about the third movie, but I'll talk a little bit about it. So in this movie, John Goodman's character has a bunker that he's using to stave off the radiation poisoning that's covering the Earth, and he rescues Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character, as well as John Goodman, or John Gallagher Jr.'s character. And then they find out that he's fucking crazy and that he caused the accident that hurt her, and he's keeping them captive, and the radiation damage that's outside may not be a real thing. At the end of the movie, she finally makes her way out. Turns out that the world is being overrun by these giant clover monsters that you see from the first movie, and they're all in the distance, and she's like, well, hopefully I'm okay, and she drives off, and it's basically there's a recording on the radio telling people to meet at a certain place for evac or whatever, and so on and so forth. But it's a really cool reveal because throughout the whole thing you're really confused on how this is attached or related to Cloverfield, and then you find out that the Cloverfield monsters or clovers are there's multiples of them, and they're all over the place. Pretty rad movie. Very tense movie as well, if you haven't seen it. Pretty rad. So the Cloverfield Paradox. So this one, the title is extremely well used because it is in its own right a paradox in itself, because it's two really good movies and then this thing. So I know what they tried to do with it, and I think it could have been better, but it was not great. They actually were going to scrap it, but they already made it. It didn't test well, apparently. So then Netflix gobbled it up and released it literally the day after the Super Bowl, I think, or like right after the Super Bowl. I can't remember what it was. But they debuted the trailer during the Super Bowl, and then the movie was out. Yeah, it's right here. A surprise trailer aired during Super Bowl in 2018, advertising the movie's final title, and they released on Netflix, which they had bought from Paramount, and then released immediately after the release occurred immediately after the big game, the Super Bowl in 2018. It was an interesting way of doing it. Obviously, it's they went for surprise because no one knew what the name of the movie was. They knew they were making a new Cloverfield movie, and they released it. And it had a lot of cool stuff. The execution wasn't great. It turned out to be very poor. It's by far the worst of the three movies. hopefully to be the worst of all the movies. Hopefully this fourth one they're doing is better. But basically, the reason it's called the Cloverfield Paradox is because it takes place after the Cloverfield, but is actually what caused the monster to be on Earth, or monsters to be on Earth. If you want to watch it, definitely check it out, especially if you've seen the other two movies and you haven't watched it. It's an interesting story idea. The movie itself, again, much like 10 Cloverfield Lane, doesn't really have anything to do with the monsters, other than the fact that it led to the release of the monster on Earth and how it got there. But a lot of other weird shit happens on it. It's a science fiction horror movie. It's a fun watch. It's just not great. Some weird shit happens in it. It's got some weird pacing. But it's good. It's essentially explains where the Clover monsters come from in a way. Not completely. They don't say like, oh, it comes from this planet and things like that. But tells you how the first one got to Earth and the other ones subsequently got there as well. And then you realize at the end of the movie that like you watched a pointless movie because all it did is tell you where the monster came from, but not where the monster came from, or how the monster got to Earth. And then from there, doesn't really do much. And so, yeah, that's about it. Check it out if you want. It's like I said, a fairly interesting movie. The movie's not great, but it's cool to kind of again, their idea of was pretty cool, but the movie was not very good. I enjoyed it, but not like you should watch this one for sure. No, if you like Cloverfield and you like 10 Cloverfield Lane, and you want to keep those in good standing, and you want to have a Crystal Skull situation on you, do not watch the third movie. That's all there is to it. You don't have to watch it to enjoy the other ones. It doesn't have any closure. It just adds to the movie itself a little bit. To the not the movie, but the overarching everything in the movie itself. Anyhow, that's it for this week's episode of The Awesome Cody. Again, I have been your host, Cody, and tune in next week when I talk about the Meg, the movie from 2000. 2019, I think is when it came out. I could be wrong. When did the Meg come out? We'll find out next week. I can't remember when year that came out. 2019 or 2018. I can't remember. But learn more about that next week. And if I didn't specify why. So why these movies are part of this month's theme is because the giant monsters that are in them, the massive monsters that wreak havoc in New York as well as in the countryside of New Orleans and all over the earth, as you find out in Cloverfield Paradox. And the posters, by the way, are pretty cool. I'll have them on the website for each one, along with the trailers for those, as well as the trailer for Tales from the Loop. But yeah, check it out. Check them out there. They're pretty awesome. And if you haven't seen the movies, definitely watch them. I know I own the first two movies on iTunes. That's where I watched them. But I know Cloverfield Paradox is still on Netflix because it's Netflix, air quotes, original. So you can still watch it there if you would like to. Anyways, that's it for this week's episode. It has been a long one. I'm sorry, but it is 3 movies, 2 good ones and 1 shitty one. But tune in next week. Same talk time, same talk place. I've been your host, Cody. And as usual, let's be awesome.